Hello there, and welcome back to Breaking Down a Literary Essay with Mr. Rose. In our last lesson, we looked at how to write a clear and insightful introduction using the CAT method. That is, our context, our arguments, and our thesis. Now that your introduction is done, it's time to build the heart of your essay, the body paragraphs. Each of your three body paragraphs will focus on one key argument that you've put in your introduction. To help you stay organized and analytical, we'll be using the PETAL structure. First, I want to talk to you about how to structure your body paragraphs and why PETAL should be your new best friend. You might be used to using teal or an extended teal paragraph writing, which adds that extra layer of explanation. These structures are okay for basic analytical writing, but they're a little too general and don't give you enough focus on how techniques create meaning. That's where PETAL comes in. It's specifically built for literary and film analysis, and it pushes you thinking further. Here's what it stands for. Your P stands for point. This is your clear topic sentence that introduces your argument. E stands for your explain and your evidence. You might provide some context around your evidence or your example, whether that is a quote from the text or a specific example from within a film. Your T stands for technique. This is the literary or film technique used that shapes meaning. Your A is your analysis. This is the heart of your paragraph. It explains the why, the how, and the so what. And L, that is your link. It ties your point back to your thesis or leads to your next idea. So, why is PETAL better than teal or the extended teal? PETAL puts technique front and center, which is exactly what assessors look for in literary and film essays. It creates a clearer pathway for deep analysis, not just a surface level explanation. It builds stronger connections between evidence and interpretation. You're not just stating what happens, you're unpacking how and why it matters. And PETAL is perfect for comparative essays. You can use the same structure to explore how both texts present an idea differently or similarly. You need to remember that analytical writing is more than just proving a point. It's about showing how authors and directors construct meaning, and PETAL helps you do that in a structured, insightful, and sophisticated way. So let's break down PETAL in the next couple of slides and use my example and some of my reflections to help you master this structure. You can see on the screen now under the "What does it look like" slide, where I have written a PETAL paragraph on the topic of control with 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale. We'll be going through each part using control as our concept and the texts of 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale as our examples. But you need to remember that you can use this same structure for your chosen texts, whether it is The Great Gatsby and Aaron Brockovich or others in the future. We're going to start with our P. P is for point. This is making a clear statement. It is your topic sentence. It introduces what this paragraph is about and links directly to your thesis. It should clearly state how your concept is shown. It should also refer to both texts. You can see I've put on the screen some sentence starters that can hopefully guide you in constructing that first sentence. You can see on the screen now my example of my point sentence. I have written, Orwell and Atwood both present surveillance as a central tool of control used to limit freedom and maintain power by making characters constantly feel watched. In this sentence, I tell the reader the aspect of control being explored. I'm talking about surveillance. I talk about both texts being compared, and that this paragraph will focus on how surveillance limits freedom and enforces control. Our next section is our evidence and example, or explanation. Now is the time to support your point with some evidence. This can be a quote from the novel or film, a key moment or scene, a description of what's happening in that moment. I've added some sentence starters there to help guide you. It's important as well to add some context around your evidence or your example. I refer to this as your explain. Your reader may not be familiar with the text as much as you are, so make sure you've added that context around it. I'll show you what I mean in my example. My example is this is shown when the slogan Big Brother is watching you appears repeatedly on posters suggesting a constant government presence and surveillance. In my example, I have introduced a powerful and familiar quote of Big Brother is watching you. I've explained its context. I've said that it's everywhere and it's on posters. And I'm beginning to hint at a psychological impact, which, if you refer back to my introduction, I mentioned there. Here is where you identify the technique used in your evidence. You need to identify and name the literary or film technique used. It's also important to discuss whether or not it is effective or not. So ask yourself, what device is used? Is it symbolism, repetition, lighting, music, dialogue, tone? The list goes on. And how does the technique help the author communicate meaning? On the screen, once again, I have some sentence starters to help guide you. My sentence for technique is Orwell uses repetition and symbolism to create a sense of fear and obedience. If we're reflecting on this example, you can see that I have spoken about how repetition builds pressure. I'm talking about the slogan, the symbolism of Big Brother representing government, which I'll discuss in my analysis. I'm starting to show how meaning is created, not just what is happening. We are now up to the A of the petal. This is the most important part. Here is where you dig into the why and so what of the technique. You need to be focusing on why the technique is used, what it reveals about the concept, and what it tells us on a deeper level about values, context, or human experience. On the screen, I have a few examples of how to construct that analysis. You've got a cause and effect. You have the effect on reader or viewer, and you have the link to bigger ideas or context. My example is up on the screen now. I've written, this repeated slogan becomes a psychological tool. It symbolizes how the party controls not just people's actions, but their thoughts. Fear of being watched leads to self-censorship. Orwell uses that totalitarian regimes maintain power by breaking down the boundary between public and private life, reflecting post-war fears of propaganda and state surveillance. You can see the way that I have moved from textual evidence to bigger picture meaning. I've explained how the technique and the theme of control connect. I've also tied it back to the context. I've showed that deeper understanding by mentioning what Orwell was getting at when he was writing this particular text. You need to remember that your analysis is going to be significantly bigger than the rest of other letters. This is important. You are writing an analytical. Most of your marks come from this area. Lastly, we're looking at our link. This is where we link it all back together. In your link, you can reinforce your argument. You can also reconnect to the essay question, or decide to lead into your next point if you are writing a longer essay. On the screen, I have some sentence starters there to help guide you. So my example is, ultimately, Orwell uses surveillance to expose the terrifying reach of psychological control, warning readers about the power of fear in shaping behavior and belief. I've linked this back to my original concept of control. I've made sure to reinforce the author's message, and it helps the paragraph feel more complete and cohesive. So, when you are building your 3 paragraphs, you need to remember for your full essay, you will write 3 body paragraphs, each exploring a different way your chosen concept is shown in both texts. I know you are thinking, how do I do this? What are my 3 arguments? It's okay. You can always go back to your introduction and edit these if you change your mind or tweak it slightly. So you can see on your screen now under the how do I do that, I've structured it using my example. If your concept is control, your structure might look like your first body paragraph talking about surveillance and how the constant observation limits freedom, that cameras, slogans, and glances. In paragraph 2, I might talk about the way that there's this manipulation of truth and language, how the media, language, or power structures distort reality in both texts. And lastly, my body paragraph 3 might focus around the loss of autonomy or identity. I can talk about how particular characters are stripped of independence, especially gender roles and class. When I'm referring to the characters, I can refer to the characterization within my technique as well. So, your final tips for your body paragraphs. Use topic sentences that clearly link to your thesis. Make sure you stay focused. You want 1 argument per paragraph. You are focusing on one element of your chosen concept. Always include the technique and talk about whether or not it is effective or not. When you are writing your analysis, it needs to be the biggest and most detailed section. This is the how, the why, and the so what. I need to know how the author has done it, why the author has done it, and why is it important that we reflect on this particular part. Make sure you also compare the text throughout, not just one and then the other. I'm hoping this is enough to help you write your PETAL paragraphs with confidence. Thank you.